Hello, and welcome to another episode of Taylor Talks Comics. Today, we're going to be talking about Fantastic Four, The Omnibus by Mark Waid and Mike Wieringo. Stay tuned. Okay, this video is sponsored by OrganicPriceBooks.com, the best place to buy your comics and graphic novels. All the omnibuses and absolute editions, deluxe editions from other companies that you want to buy. You might be watching this video on the Organic Price Books web YouTube page, or you might be watching it on Taylor Talks Comics. Regardless, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment down below. And I do just want to say that you can order this book and many others at OrganicPriceBooks.com. And if you do, use my promo code TaylorTalksComics, all one word, Taylor Talks Comics, and they'll save you $2 off of your order. If you plan on putting a bigger order in, 4 books or more, use my other promo code. That's going to be TTC Ship It Together, all one word, TTC Ship It Together. And that will save you 5% off of your order. All that information is down below in the description of this video. So today we're talking about Fantastic Four by Mark Waid and Mike Wieringo. Sorry, I can't talk or say that name. Omnibus. This collects the entire run. I'll show you the spine here. This is the standard edition cover. They did have a DM cover this time around because this was a reprint, or is a reprint. This is previously released. And this time around, they did a DM cover, but this is the standard edition. Take the dust jacket off. Show you the underneath. Here's the flaps. Got a nice picture of Johnny, Ben, and Spidey there, and then Sue and Reed on that side. There's the back cover. I showed you that. And the spine is different on the DM cover. It's not just Ben Grimm on the spine. It's the entire team. But Ben Grimm is the best member, right? So why would you want anything else? Just kidding. But as you can see in my background here, Fantastic Four is my favorite Marvel comic. This whole background is made up of the Jack Kirby era, but I like all eras of Fantastic Four. So as we open this, should I show you the whole book? Sorry. It has a Fantastic Four logo. Looks like this very cosmic space kind of design to it, which is different. The original printing had, I believe it was this on one side without the trade dress, and then I believe the back side was what became the DM cover with no trade dress on it. And then the spine looked the same as the dust jacket. I believe it's what the first printing looked like. I actually have a video on my channel showing off the first printing. I then sold it in one of my purges when I was moving. And so I'm happy to have it back in my collection because this is truly one of my favorite runs of the FF, and it's a really fast read too. I always say that to people. I've read this omnibus now twice, and both times I read it in a day or two, depending on how much time I had to read. So you have white end papers, and then you have Marvel's first family there walking towards you, and then you have cool images here done by Mike Wieringo, and then here's the most table contents you get, which is kind of frustrating. It's done the Marvel Omnibus way. For some reason, they don't give you a full table of contents, but they do. I will say, every time there's a new issue, they do at least tell you which issue number it is. So it'll say like Fantastic Four 68. So then you can easily refer back to here to see who's the artist on that book. Oh, Mike Wieringo he did issue 68. Mark Waid wrote that one, and then you can look at the inkers and stuff. So it's not a full table of contents, but it does at least have all the credits in there that you would want, and everything like that. You do have an introduction here by Ralph Macchio, former editor of Marvel, and I believe he was the editor during this time. Yes, he was. In his introduction, he talks about speaking to Mark Waid to pitch him on Fantastic Four. Mark Waid was just coming off of his historic Flash run that lasted, I think, nearly a decade. This is early 2000s. It's what this Fantastic Four run takes place. So he reached out to Mark Waid, and Mark Waid actually surprisingly says that Fantastic Four is not one of his favorite comics. Whenever I think of Mark Waid, I think of him as like one of those historian type writers who knows all of Marvel and DC continuity. And not that he says he hates it, nothing like that. It's just that he never aspired to write them is more accurate, probably. But the idea of doing it with Mike Wieringo, who also worked on The Flash with him, and then editor Tom Brevoort was the other teammate, because he was the editor with Mark on Flash as well. So it's kind of like getting that whole band back together that kind of made him interested in doing it. So I'm trying to see the editors here. Yeah, Tom Brevoort was the editor. I don't know. Maybe Ralph Macchio's association with this run. Regardless, this omnibus collects issues. Let me make sure I get this right. It's on the dust jacket. I know it's 34 issues. It collects issues 60 through 70, and then 500 through 524. So a total of 34 issues. They're not missing any issues. What happened was after issue 70, they went back to the legacy numbering and realized that what was going to be issue 71 was actually the 500th issue of Fantastic Four. So they went to number 500 and then kept that numbering going. One important note I would like to also point out is that the Heroes Return run, which has been collected in 4 complete collections, is the entirety of issues 1 through 59. So if you want to read what happens before this, it's the entire set of 4 complete collections of Heroes Return. That's where the renumbering happened, was after Heroes Reborn. When they got reintroduced to the Marvel continuity, they renumbered it back to number 1. So issue 60 here, we're kicking off right away. Like I said, this whole run it's a fast-paced story. It's split into arcs. So you get this first introductory issue, which was sold for like 9 cents, I think. It was kind of a gimmick for Marvel to get people to jump on board to this new creative team on the FF to try to instill some sort of excitement for the run. And then issue 61 starts off. So that's kind of a telling you where we are now kind of thing, explaining how things are going to be back to basics, because that's what Mark Waid and Mike Wieringo did, really, was bring the Fantastic Four back to the basics, back to what Stan Lee and Jack Kirby started them off with their 102 issue run, and then what John Byrne would later do in his big run that was highly regarded, as well as trying to think of other ones that had big runs. There was the Paul Ryan, and I'm trying to think, dang it, who was the writer on that one? It was the guy that was the editor. I don't know, let me know in the comments. There have been a lot of big runs of FF throughout the 416 issues that made up the first volume prior to this. Claremont was one of the big writers on the Heroes Return era in those 4 complete collections that I was talking about. I think Claremont did like the first 30 or so issues around about. But then after those first 2 issues in this omnibus, when you get to issue 62, it starts to get split up into arcs. This is something that's reminiscent of, modern day comics that are split into arcs that support like the trade paperbacks and whatnot. But it's nice when you're reading it this way, because then you have like nice little stopping points if you want to read, like, okay, I'm just going to sit down and read one more arc. And then issue 64 here is part 3 of 3, so this is one whole arc of Sentient. And then after that arc ends, you get to small stuff 1 through 2. So some of the things that Mark Waid and Mike Wieringo are doing throughout this is not only bringing it back to basics, and what I mean by that is not like doing Silver Age storytelling. It's finding the heart of the matter of what makes this team so great. One of the things I love about Fantastic Four is all the different interactions and relationships within the team. So you have like Sue and Reed, husband and wife. You have Johnny and Sue, which are brother and sister. You have Reed and Ben, former college best friends. You have Johnny and Ben, who are like the antagonistic, prank pulling kind of brothers that always get on each other's nerves. You have Sue and Ben, who's like the wife and the best friend of the husband kind of relationship. All those interactions and interconnected all have like their own moments throughout this omnibus, which I think is awesome, that Mark Waid really finds a moment for Ben and Sue to have, and for Johnny and Sue, and Johnny and Reed and Ben all have like their moments of just the two of them together. And then you get moments with the kids, because Valeria, who was born during the hero's return era, who you can see right here, and you find out why her name's Valeria. They rehash that in here too. So she was born during the hero's return era. You don't see her birth again in this one, but to catch you up, they do explain why her name's Valeria, the complications with her birth and that kind of thing. It's all kind of re-explained and recapped in here, so you're not lost. But you get interactions with her and the team. Franklin has his own issues with, people giving Valeria more attention, or maybe not having the most present dad with Reed, who's a workaholic. And those kinds of themes, too, of the characters are present, of Reed being the workaholic that kind of abandons his family at times, and how important is family to him when he's always obsessed with his work. That's addressed in here. And then how that affects his and Sue's relationship, and his and Johnny, and his and Ben's relationship. And you get to see Ben Grimm be kind of the stubborn, blockheaded, throw a fist, ask questions later kind of guy that makes him, the ever-lovable, blue-eyed Ben Grimm. Johnny Storm, you get to see him mature a little bit. Early in the story, he's still kind of like the bachelor, immature, college-aged kid. I think he's probably in his mid-20s at this point. But you know how Marvel's on a sliding scale. People don't really age that rapidly. But you see that immature stage of him being kind of like the playboy, doesn't take things seriously kind of thing. And you get to see him mature when Sue gives him responsibilities of taking over the financial aspects of the Fantastic Four's business, which is an ever ongoing issue throughout the book, is their finances, and how Reed's constantly selling patents for his inventions to make money so they can go on their space adventures and exploration. One of the big stories going throughout here too is with Dr. Doom. So you get a classic Dr. Doom Fantastic Four story, and Dr. Doom, which the thing that separates him and Reed has always been that Dr. Doom is okay with mixing magic and science, and Reed is always just strictly science. And with that, obviously their morals are different as well. But as far as like on the parallels of them being geniuses, one of the things that makes Dr. Doom different is that he's okay with mixing magic in. So Reed has to confront that. There's a spot where he's stuck, and the only thing he could do is magic his way out. But how is he going to do that? Doctor Strange might make a visit and help him out a little bit, but he has to show some growth in that and not realize that science isn't always the answer. So that's part of the classic Doom story, but also Doom is involved with hell, literal hell, and may have captured some of the members of Fantastic Four. I'm trying not to spoil too much, to bring in there with him. They might have trapped him in there. But the important thing is, for the story, is that Reed tries to take over Latveria. And Latveria is addressed, where Latveria is taken over as a dictatorship. It's a communist, I don't even know if communist is the right word. I think it's just dictatorship country. And it's always been like the ongoing narrative that Latveria, everyone in there is happy and has the resources they need, but they are being overruled by a dictator and Doom. So it's like that kind of counter argument of, well, do they really need to mess with the people that live there? Like, aren't they happy as they are? But they don't have the freedom. That's kind of a very American ideal of like, freedom is more important than anything else kind of thing. So you get kind of that narrative, an argument in there too, and Reed tries to take over as the leader of a free Latveria. There is a story then too where the Fantastic Four has to go to heaven, and I don't want to spoil this for you because it's an amazing issue. It concludes with issue 511, one of my all-time favorite Fantastic Four issues, where they have to go to heaven to save someone close to them who may have passed away a little bit too early than they're supposed to. They have to go to heaven and kind of negotiate and figure out if the person belongs there or not. I'm trying to do this without spoiling much. So that's why I'm being vague. And then this very big surprise of who is considered God in the Marvel universe, at least according to Mark Waid and Mike Wieringo in this case. But yeah, great story, 511. This, I will say, this issue, this arc right here, 514, I think it starts with 514, is the only downside to this entire, 514 through 516 is the only down part of this omnibus. Everything else is excellent and some of the best comics I've ever read. So I can't recommend this enough. But those three issues, 514, 515, and 516, are written by Carl Kessel and drawn by Paco Medina, this is his artwork you're looking at now. And it wasn't like awful comics or anything like that. It was just kind of meandering, and I didn't really understand where they're going. And then even afterwards, what happens in those three issues doesn't really affect anything that happens afterwards. So really, Marvel could have omitted those three issues and just called us the Mark Waid, Mike Wieringo omnibus and left out those three issues because neither Waid nor Wieringo have anything to do with them. Left them out and then moved on. Although I guess... No, that's fine. Yeah, that's the conclusion to this dysfunction story. But then people online would have been upset that they had orphaned issues of those three issues or whatever. And I'm one of those people because I'm a completist or completionist. And I always want them to be as complete as possible with nothing omitted. But it's just one of those cases where they could have omitted it and it would have really been a big deal, even though people would have been upset by it. And like I said, they're not awful. It's just like everything else is so high quality in this omnibus that was kind of a downer. But and then it concludes in a great way. Every high spot that you want in a Fantastic Four run, like the classic Doom story, all those interactions with the family I talked about, everything, all the classic story beats that have ever been in any sort of Fantastic Four run, Mark Waid and Mike Wieringo nail every one of them. So if you're a long-time Fantastic Four fan, you're going to love this run from seeing all those different beats. And if you're a new fan of Fantastic Four, this is the best modern run to jump on. I cannot recommend any other modern run of Fantastic Four to jump on as a starting point than this one. So if you're more of a modern comics reader, you don't like the Silver Bronze Age stuff, you get a classic Galactus story too, I should say. Then this is the one I'd recommend for you if you want to. If you want to know, like, what are the Fantastic Four all about, and then this is the run I'd recommend the most. And it concludes in a great way. It has a classic, like, Thing losing his cursed powers, where he's like the big orange ugly monster, and there's constant, like, throughout the entire history of Fantastic Four, of Reed trying to cure him of that, but Ben Grimm also kind of weighing the options of, like, well, if you cure me from it, then, like, I'm not the Thing anymore. And do I need to be the Thing? Here's all the extras in the back I'm going to show you. So here's some sketch ideas from Mike Wieringo that he's doing, which is always cool to see these kind of process photos and seeing how detailed his process can be. Here's the Fantastic Four 500 director's cut. And this is weird. It's called director's cut, and they're deleted scenes, but it's not like you're not going to see any comic art on these deleted scenes. It's more of just like Mark Waid doing his commentary on why these scenes were cut and talking about the editorial process of cutting them, which is great. Like, the great process and stuff. I just think calling it a director's cut was kind of weird, I guess, in my opinion. But it is nice going, and you can see Mike chime in a little bit too in this. So really cool insert, and I love to see that. And then you see Mark talking about the designs of the different characters and what they wanted out of it, what Mark imagined they would look like, and then what Mike came up with. You do get a Fred Himbeck comic, which is classic. Who doesn't want that? I do love this image here. I think it's 3 pages. Yeah. So this is all the first 500 issues of Fantastic Four, the covers, which is really cool to see. Because it was a historical note hitting issue 500. Here's text from Stan Lee's original synopsis for Fantastic Four #1. There is a historical conflict on if this was written after the fact in Stan's way of proving that he came up with a lot of the ideas for Fantastic Four, or if this existed prior to. The conflict comes from the fact that nothing like this exists of Stan Lee doing any sort of pre-written outline for any of the other characters he ever co-created. And the fact that this was presented when the argument came up of who created the Fantastic Four, Stan Lee or Jack Kirby. I'm not here to tell you whether I believe it was created before or after, anything like that, or if Stan Lee was the creator. I'm not gonna, this isn't the video for that, but that is in here. And then here's deleted scenes for 503 and 511 with some different sketch ideas. And then here's an email exchange between Mark Waid and Tom Brevoort, which is kind of fun to see the behind the scenes exchange there. And then you get some notes on the 511, which is, like I said, that classic issue that I was talking about, which is really insightful to read that and kind of read. Like I said, it's one of my favorite issues, so it's insightful to read that. And then here's a farewell sketch of Mike Wieringo signing off and saying farewell to the Marvel's first family, which Mike Wieringo, if you weren't aware, did pass away at a young age, and so it was really sad, obviously, to have that and not be able to have any more Mike Wieringo comics. So this kind of speaks a different note now that he's no longer with us. This was just him drawing, saying goodbye to the first family as he's going on to his next project, but now in hindsight, it's kind of a little bit more sorrow. But yes, that is Fantastic Four by Mark Waid and Mike Wieringo, the Omnibus. Thank you to Organic Price Books for having me do this review of the book. I appreciate that. And this is, like I said, highly recommended for any fan of Fantastic Four or any new fan of comics that wants to try out a good run of Fantastic Four that they can read quickly and get to know all the characters before they dive into other Fantastic Four runs. Thank you. Give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Comment down below with your favorite Fantastic Four runs or what you think of this comic or this book. And use those promo codes for OPB to save money on organicpricebooks.com. All the information's down in the description below, along with where to find me on social media. Have a great one.